people around it. It doesn't matter if you work in this festival, you're visiting the festival, or you're a local person. We always had this gang together, and everybody were like in a family.
See you in Malta.
Hello guys and welcome back for some 555, €5, pot limit Omaha with 5 cards. Everyone is here on the absolute spin. It's one of the last days of the Cash Game Festival and the punting is real. This is going to be some big action here, guys. We're going to expect to see some 2K pots plus and some multi-way action. The problem is with the 5 cards is that everyone feels like they've qualified, so there will be a lot of action and a lot of chips flying in there, and I'm very excited to see who comes out on top. Great opportunity for these guys to get their hands on the Omaha trophy as well, which I'm sure Maritz there to the left of your screen is telling the players about. The fact that they will have the chance to get themselves a Cash Game Festival package worth €1,000 to a future stop of their choice. Bucharest is coming up next, the 16th to the 20th. And if you want to get away, find a way to get to Bucharest for a discount, join us at Pokio, which is our mobile partner, running cash games 24/7 on there. And that has 4 card, 5 cards, Sveton, Hold'em, and open face Chinese as well. Information on Pokio is just been put in the chat for you guys there. So a couple of limps. Nick's going to pot it from the small blind with the very playable single-suited kings. Gets a couple of loose calls and gets the check mark. Flops himself top set, and he's also got the wrap as well and a flush blocker. So the absolute lot. And it's going to probably might struggle to get some action here. Bets 50. Dimitri calls with top pair. Is unfortunately drawing dead. And Karen has 4 hearts in her hand on the button and an open ender, so I'm not sure why Nick's been given the check mark. Maybe all of the hearts have been folded or something. And let's have a look at what the turn card brings. It is the 9, so Nick improving to the nut straight. Karen now with an additional pair and still that nut flush draw. But the turn card bringing backdoor diamonds, so Nick's going to be wanting to go pretty big here, leaving himself a shove on the river. And as you can see, some deep stacks in play. Karen with 750. The bottom 5 guys, Nick, Jimmy, Alexander, Sergey and Dimitri in for 500. And Rock in for 1,000.
Servis poprosím, TV. Áno. 8 cool, 1 cool, 2 pass.
The pot, the whole pot, and nothing but the pot. So the whole pot.
50. 50, right. 50. So 3.
Jimmy picking up the double suited kings with some relatively decent side cards as well. The H7 being connected certainly helps his hand. Alexander with double suited ace jack 10. Also a playable hand, but it looks like we've got some straddles in the mix. Nick on the 10 button straddle, who's going to defend with a suited ace and pocket 3s. Has position and has a pretty good price to try and flop that nut draw. 10, 6, 4, scanning the cards. Dimitri's got a king high flush draw. Alexander with top 2 pair and the nut flush draw. And Jimmy, who started the hand with a very playable holding, unfortunately reduced to pretty much nothing on that flop. Just the naked king's not going to be what he's looking for. Alexander going to try and pot this one, I think. Yeah, about 200, leaving himself 250 behind. Seems good. Dimitri has... what has he got? Just the king high flush draw with 3 spades in his hand. And some backdoor straights. He's going to call. And he is completely crushed by Alexander's hand, blimey. He's going to need a jack pretty quickly. It's a 4. Oh, Alexander's actually got middle set as well. Piles it in. And I don't think Dimitri can just call it off here with the king high flush draw on the turn. It's pretty much the worst card in the deck for him. And lets it go. So great start there for Alexander, winning 400 euros in that pot.
Wonderful. 3 plus 4 raise 20. 5 plus
Right, I'll start on the bouton.
20.
Le bouton.
6 go.
Go like a knit now.
So straight back in the action is Alexander with a very playable hand, Queen Jack 10, 9, 9. 4 to the straight and double suited. Mr. Velletri there in the small blind, just flatting with pretty bad kings. He's got 3 diamonds and gaps with the side cards. So I like the decision to just call. Definitely doesn't want to 3-bet and face a 4-bet with this hand. And Karen and Dimitri in there as well, with pretty loosey-goosey holdings. And it's King 10-7, so Alexander has the complete wrap with the open-ended straight flush draw. Karen has a flush draw as well, and Dimitri has a club. So Alexander with 60% equity and up against top set. That just shows you the strength of his hand. Stephen blocking some of his own outs.
Still 385.
So it's going to be a pot, and Alexander has got no choice but to stack off here, and it's going to be a 2k pot straight in the mix for you guys. He has an ace, queen, jack, 9, 8, club, basically about half the deck.
Raise all in position 4. I call plus
Three of spades giving Alexander even more outs with 2 flush draws and completely bricks it off with the 4 of diamonds. Somehow Stephen manages to find an incredible hold there, winning a 2k pot, which is going to be a hammer blow to Alexander, who was in for 500 and all of a sudden, within about 20 minutes, had the absolute spin for half the deck for 2k. And that's just pretty much typical Omaha 5 card for you guys.
Foreman zamena 1000. Change the order.
Looks like we've got a dealer change. We're going to be straight back in the mix with the 5 card action, guys. Let us know where you're tuning in from today, what you're up to, if there's any poker in your agenda for this evening, or if you're just relaxing and watching the stream and hanging out. Do feel free to let us know.
Mississippi in the game. No. Call, 2, 3, 4, fold.
So Romeo limping in the small blind on the button straddle. I like it with the aces. Looking to go for a limp pot, just seeing what happens with the action. Stephen checking back 4 clubs on the button. It's a good, wise decision. King 9, Queen. Let's have a look. Karen has flopped herself a Jack high flush draw with a gut shot. It's a swing and a miss for Romeo.
Check.
And Stephen's going to check back as well. 6 on the turn. Doesn't change an awful lot. Brings in a couple of backdoor straight draws as well. But it's going to go check as well. And a 7 on the river gives Karen the check mark, I believe, with the Jack high flush. Only a €45 pot. Doesn't look like anyone wants to have a stab at it either.
20.
But Romeo is going to take a punt at it. And good luck getting Karen to fold just for the 1 bet. XZRE Gaming, George, what's your opinion on the caps? What make poker great again? I think they're a bit tongue-in-cheek, you know, with the whole Donald Trump thing, obviously. Bit of a controversial subject, but yeah, they're just meant to be, I think, a bit of fun and shouldn't be taken too seriously. Thanks for joining, by the way.
Všetkým dielom vyhlásili high-handy, že máme pol hodinu do žiadneho víťaza momentálne.
All the
folds, all the folds. Okay.
What's your opinion, XZRE Gaming? So scanning around the table, you've got Rock in seat 1, Sergey there in seat 5, Karen seat 6, Nick seat 7, Jimmy in seat 3. Star-studded lineup for you guys. Why can't Nooney beat 10 and L? The lad needs a bit of work, that's for sure. He'll get there though, he'll get there. So Nick popping it up with the double-suited kings. Relatively disconnected side cards, but double-suited kings are double-suited kings. You're always happy to take it. Gets shown the ace-high board, but luckily does have the nuts spades as some consolation. Karen's flopped herself top pair with 4-high flush draw. Just scanning around the hands. Yeah, it looks like Romeo is in there with 6-5-4-3. Not sure why that's got 22%. Just looks like the bottom end of the straight draw to me. And no backdoor flush draw, so interesting to see that. Over Nick pumps it in for 128 and gets a load of folds. And he'll be pretty happy with this result. The good thing about that board in particular is that his kings are going to be a nice clean out as well. That would be the second set, which would essentially be the nuts. And you know, he had some additional backup as well. So good stuff there from Nick, taking the initiative with the large bet on the flop and taking it down.
Mississippi.
So Alexander with the double suited jacks. Probably going to be coming in for a call. I like that.
You want to change, please?
Karen gets out the way. Nick's hand is quite weak with 2 bad flush draws. The Queen Jack 10 is nice, but not strong enough with anywhere near closing the action. Just a hand that's going to play really badly multi-way as well.
Four players.
Looks like Romeo's just flattered the cutoff as well with aces, with 3 spades in his hand, bad side cards. Fair enough, and it might pay off for him here as he's going to have a set over set situation, and he's going to be completely under-repped. Starts it off with the check. Looks like Alexander's somehow checked as well, and ooh, Jimmy's in there with the gut shots and queen high flush draw. Looks like he wants to start the betting as well. Does have backdoor diamonds to boot. Alexander in seat 4 has potted it. And now that leaves Romeo behind with 1.4k, having slow played his hand pre-flop with the current nuts. So he's going to be loving this action. And you know what? If he repots, he might be able to get Jimmy to fold, which would be incredible for him because he'd isolate the combo draw out of the pot. As Jimmy will be a little bit concerned that he might be up against the nut flush or a better draw, with nut flush draw, or with better side cards. And yeah, this could work perfectly for Romeo. He's able to maybe squeeze Jimmy out, yeah, which he does fold, and Alexander is left essentially drawing dead with a hand that he's yeah, got completely crushed. What Alexander's thinking here is that I have nothing with my jacks, which is such a tough spot. Thinking through the hand pre-flop. Thinking why would he only limp from the cutoff if he does have the aces? And he finds the fold, and I think it's a very disciplined laydown there to get away from it. Understanding that he does want to be stacking off with middle set if he's got some additional equity.
Blind, please. Yeah, he does. Blind, please. And you play Mississippi.
So Karen's got a playable hand, double suited kings with an ace and a king suit. Great start. And she pumps it up to 30, I think, on the button straddle.
Yeah, sorry. Oh,
Nick's out, Dimitri's out, Steven's out.
call. Fold. Free. Call.
Well, Steven's in with single suited eights and a nut suit. Interesting. No, he's out. Good. And Alexander defends with the king, queen, jack 10. It all seems pretty standard stuff so far. Karen swapped herself a gut shot with the ace 2, an overpair, backdoor spades with front door clubs.
55.
But is in pretty rough shape against Alexander, who's got himself 2 pair. And lots of backdoor stuff going on as well.
Call.
Looks like Romeo's come along for the ride with bottom 2 pair and not much additional equities. Doesn't have a backdoor flush draw. I think this call is a little bit on the looser side. Not really any great turns for Romeo's hand. Alexander with the top 2 there. Looks like he has
240. Well, sorry.
Is that a pot?
Yeah, 450. 400. Yeah, pot is 200. Here, but pot. Pot is 200. 235. 35. Because he don't.
Yeah, he's potted it to 235, which puts Karen in a bit of a spot. She doesn't have the nut flush draw, but she does have some decent equity in her hand, and I think she's
300.
probably going to be going with it.
Yeah,
Backdoor spades as well, gut shot. Yeah, she's going to call.
Yeah. 300. Yeah.
She makes the call with 337 behind, which I'm not sure I'm a massive fan of because she does have decent equity versus, you know, Alexander's range.
And Heads up.
And if she ever gets forced out of the equity on the turn with 3-3-7 behind, it's a bit of a disaster for her. However, Alexander turns the boat with Queen 5, and that is going to lock it up, as I believe there are no more kings available in the deck. It would certainly be a nice card to check back. Yeah, I like this, to try and get the club there and eke some value that way. It does come the 9, so Karen only having kings and 5s here, and looks like she's moved all in. Wow. Been snapped off. Not sure if she was bluffing or value betting there.
Sit open.
I think the hand plays a little bit better as a bluff catch as opposed to a value bet. It's going to be pretty tough to get called by ace queen or something along those lines. When he does pot the flop, he is representing queens, queen 5, a set. A lot of that got there on the turn. He checks back, which would certainly be indicative of one of those hands as well for some balance in there. And yeah, so not really entirely sure the reason for the shove on the river, but good news, however, for seat 4, who has a nice comeback after losing a 2k pot to the Rock. Stephen in seat 1.
What? 4 man? I don't want to say.
1,000 total. He's going to get changed. He's bringing
Yeah,
2 more.
yeah. Okay.
Just in case you get it all in with a 3 high plus one.
Jsem nezapočítal ty 2 eura, co tam jsou. Takže ja viem. Ja viem. Jo, viem. To nedošlo. Straddle. Straddle in the game.
4 clubs for Stephen. Once again, I think he's had that hand twice now. Pretty razzy hand. Doesn't play very well at all, and especially having the 3 deuce in there certainly kills a lot of your equity. 3 deuce very rarely contributing to any kind of nutted hand, and that's kind of what we're looking for in the 5 card element of the game.
Call.
Need to be favouring connectivity and nuttedness.
Check.
King 9-8, Nick flopping top 2 pair. Definitely going to want to be leading this. Bets half pot, wants to get some weaker hands in behind. Doesn't want to just start targeting very strong hands, so I like the sizing. Does get a loose call off of Dimitri here, who needs a 7, a 10. Yeah, it looks like a 7 or a 10 basically, and there is the 7 for Dimitri, who improves to the 10-6 straight.
Check.
And picks up a king eye flush draw as well, even though Rock I think had 4 clubs too, so
35.
it's pretty much the worst turn card in the deck for Nick, and he's just going to have to let this one go. Not a lot he can do here. Praying for the 10.
Call. Super.
Nick check calling the turn with 2 pair, announcing it, and Dimitri showing him the second nut straight. Dimitri avoiding being check potted as a bluff, or just basically trying to go too thin. Giving Nick credit for having some Jack 10 checks on the turn. Or potentially just happy with the size of the pot and looking to take it down.
Dealer.
Jo, jasné. Hello, good evening.
We need the 20 though.
Hey guys, I'm here with you for a couple hands. It's Jason. Action-packed lineup as you can see in this 5-5-5 game. Imagine Romeo will be folding here with two of the cards not really coming in very well here. James folding, Alexander folding. Sergey may up for a call. He does fold. One of the cards is pad. Karen's never afraid to play. She does have the button. Nick opting not to defend. And Stephen with the option in the straddle opts to check. So it's a pretty flippy situation right now. Karen with the open ender. And we have Stephen with the nut flush draw middle pair. I would think Stephen would have a little bit of an advantage in this hand. He does bet. He gets a fold. And as you can see from that VPIP, Karen's playing a lot of hands. That's typically her style. Likes to see a lot of flops. And then takes it from there. Isn't afraid to get her stack in either when it's when she feels she has a slightly better than a flip situation. Hey Bedza, I won't be here too long, but I'll be here for a little while. George just stepping out for a couple of minutes gives me a chance to look at the action as well. Romeo once again folding from early position. It's quickly folding around. Alexander with the, well, not mystery anymore. Not a bad hand at all. Sergey coming in with a call. Karen coming in with a call. Nick with the aces. Reaching to the sky. Makes a raise up to 35, a pot-sized raise. The rock. I don't think the rock is going anywhere here. He certainly does not. So Nick is actually not in that good of a shape, even though the equity percentages show that he is, because both Alexander and Rock have an ace in their hand. So he definitely can't get a set of aces. He does have two flush draws in his hand. Now he has the nut club flush draw on the flop. So things are looking up for him. And Sergey with two pair, but he can't feel too comfortable with this two pair. It's not like the best board for two pair actually, because a lot of players will have 5-6s in their hand. As you can see with Nick, has the nut flush draw in his hand. And although Sergey also has a flush draw, if it hits, you know, he's probably not going to go crazy with it, because a 10 high flush draw and 5 card Omaha is not as strong as you might think. Certainly not compared to Hold'em. So Nick, with the flush draw and the overcards to the board, is continuing after leading the pre-flop action. A rather, almost a pot-sized bet of 150. This should do the trick. I can't see Sergey continuing with this two pair, and it does. Well done, Nick. Not afraid to play your aces strong. He's going to show the nut flush draw, I believe. He does. Well done. And George is back. Thanks, George, for letting me handle a hand or two.
No problem. Cheers, pal. Thanks very much, Jason. So glad to be back, guys. Bedza, thanks for joining. Hopefully you're enjoying the stream. Everyone in here on the absolute spin. You having fun, Connor?
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
Oh yeah? You playing a bit of cards?
A little bit.
Yeah. What cards are we playing?
PLO.
Oh.
Pretending I know what I'm doing.
Nice. How's that working out for you?
Not too bad.
Good stuff, good stuff. So Rock in there with 3 diamonds in his hand and a medium pair. Not particularly what we want to be looking for on the button straddle. Does call the 5. Alexander in there is out. Karen in the hijack with the incognito hand is going to come along for the ride. Hello, King Morphy, how you doing? Nick in the cut-off calls as well. 4 clubs in his hand and a low pair. Yeah, if he doesn't think that the button's going to be too aggressive, he can probably just about get away with it, but it's very thin. Dimitri flops himself top pair with a top and bottom, sorry. Karen with the nut flush draw. She's also got a 7. She's got bottom 2 pair with the nut flush draw. I think Dimitri has a pretty clear-cut decision on the button, wants to fold out some of the equity in there. Rock has a hand that he can turn into a bluff on a later street with the 2 9s. And decides to float one out of position. Karen's in there as well, and the game's up for Nick. Oh, it's Tommy Rungood. How you doing, pal? 6 on the turn is the absolute lot for Karen. 2 pair with the nut flush now. Ooh, but a 10 on the river improves Dimitri to the full house. Only 10's full of 2s. Certainly worth a small bet though to try and eke some value out of the nut flush, and Karen decides to lead into it herself, sort of turning her hand into some very thin value here after Dimitri bet the flop 5 ways. And getting shown the bad news. King Morphy equals Morphy Richards, King of the Irons. Is an iron someone that irons you out, or what's the term behind that? Nick gave you that name. So Jimmy from the limp on the button straddle. He's got ace jack 10 10 5. It's an okay hand, certainly with the blind already invested. You do want to be limping in. Nick has quite a playable hand, ace queen jack 9 2. There's gaps all over it though, so just does come in for the call. It's also a hand that plays quite well multi-way when you've got a nut draw and some decent connectivity up top. Who's got a piece here? Looks like Rock is in there with middle set, but he does have all of his a lot of his house outs blocked, unfortunately, having an 8 and a 3 in there as well. Looks like he's going to pot it to try and thin out the field a little bit. Nick showing his hand, not particularly happy with how it's gone so far. Dimitri has the... what does he have? There's no 5 in his hand, so it's rather speculative. Just bottom 2 pair at the moment. And a gut shot. Irons off chips and irons him out. But Dimitri is going to come along for the call, and that is rather loose, it has to be said. Rock improving to the nuts on the turn. Like to see a small bet here. Try and keep in some hands that you've got completely crushed. Potentially give him a reason to try and bluff or chase a straight draw that's completely dead. However, Rock just gets it done with the pot on the turn, not taking any chances, and taking that pot down.
Big blind, please. 5 fold, 6 call,
He had the top 4 boat. Top boat, second boat, third boat.
7 fold,
And I had an 8.
8 call,
And you had an 8. You folded the flop.
Karen Ace Jack 10 10 2, double suited, definitely playable.
2 call, 3 call,
And looks like limpy action. Jimmy in the small blind is
35,
going to be in there as well. And Alexander has double suited kings in the big blind with a pair of 8s as well. Pots it up. I like it. That's going to get a call from Karen. Dimitri's calling as well with Jack 8 5 5 4.
1 call,
Wouldn't advise that one personally.
call,
Rock's in there. We don't know what he's got. Just about anything probably. And Romeo comes along with 4 diamonds in his hand. Incredible action. So just 180 euros to the flop.
5 players,
7 7 3. And Romeo with the 4 diamonds in his hand, flopping the nut boat.
takes check,
George, you slept yet? I got about 4 hours last night, Jack. How have you been getting on?
1 bet 100,
Feel pretty ropey, it has to be said. So Rock leading out for 100, and that's going to be the absolute gin for Romeo, who's got a load of overcards to boot as well with his 7. Can get a bit dicey on a fair few turn cards. So just electing to call, play his hand under repped. Maybe try to induce a couple more leads from Rock. Karen coming along with the nut flush draw and just a naked overpair. It's definitely on the more optimistic side of the equation. No idea what Rock's got. I'm hoping a 7, but possibly 4 5 6 or something. Romeo improving his boat to 7s full of queens. Four, 5, 6, queen would be an absolute touch for Rock, wouldn't it? But wow, Karen's still coming along. And drawing completely dead to Romeo, sorry, bar the 10. And amazingly somehow has 15%. Ace on the river, Romeo with the queen 7 now. And what is Karen up to here? Goes for the check, and Romeo deciding whether to shove or not. I think it is a clear shove. He does. Only 400 or 40 effective or so into 1k. And Karen's got herself into a bit of a pickle here, calling extremely light on the flop and the turn. No 7 in her hand. Mulling it over still. Gotta let it go on the flop, Karen, let alone the river. Hopefully she doesn't completely pay him off. Does get out the way eventually. Rock looks like he was an interested customer there. Maybe trying to work out what it was that Romeo had. Don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work out. So let's have a look at what we got here. Nick's got a nice double suited hand, ace queen jack. 9-6. Going to be popping it up to 55 on what looks to be another button straddle or just a... Yeah, it is a button straddle. Jimmy with the button, single suited queens. On the looser side, does get away from it. I like the fold. I think way too many people overplay those kind of hands. And Sergey in there, who's originally limped with ace king king jack 9, has 2 suits. Looks like he's limp potted. I like this decision. And that gets Karen out the way, and now Nick is going to be continuing with this hand for sure. In position, still 270 behind. Going to be taking a flop. Possibly considering the fact that he thinks he's going to be up against aces here for the majority of the time. Getting 3-1 on his money, only has to realise 33% worth of equity and finds a fold. Which I'm neither here nor there about, really. I think that having position there, we can certainly peel one off and go from there. However, it's not the end of the world to sometimes fold, especially if you think the player is extremely tight, and I think that certainly rings true for seat 5.
Straddle. Straddle, original straddle. Eight fold. One fold.
Jack saying WTF. Yeah, I mean, as you can see on the equity calculator, he was 48%. Getting a pretty good price with some implied odds and money behind. It's also a spot where you can play perfectly against your opponent. Your opponent is going to make more mistakes post-flop. Not really mistakes, it's just that your opponent has to stack off very light and you get the choice as to what you're going to be able to stack off with in position. A lot of the times on the flop, Sergey is just going to close his eyes and blind pot.
6 straights, 100. 7 fold.
So Sergey flopping the nut wrap. Ace queen king. Backdoor hearts to boot as well. Gets raised by Karen. And 3-bets it to 325, looking just to play for stacks, pure and simple. Any ace, king, queen or 9 would be good for him, and wow, manages to get a raise fold out of Karen, which is interesting. Not sure what she's going to have.
Live straddle. Live straddle 10.
So rock with ace king 6-3-3. Don't think he's going to be playing this one, or I should say I hope he's not going to be. It's too wide. my opinion. The low pairs in your hand in the 5 and 6 card formats of the game really do kill your equity. I mean, even in 4 card obviously as well. Karen in there with the 5 cards straight in her hand. I like the decision to pot, start getting some money in there. Gonna flop a lot of draws a lot of the time. A lot of draws made hands, 2 pairs straights, all this kind of thing. Very good starting hand. And Rock manages to get out of the way for the 55, I like it. Although the mistake was compounded from just limping pre-flop in the first place with a poor hand out of position.
2 player.
So it's Queen Jack 5-3 for Romeo. And that's going to be top 2 for Karen with a gut shot straight flush draw and a wrap.
Okay, so the next 5 hand was Kubachka, table 7, 6-6, with 4 behind, 9.
And you know, Romeo's in there with top and bottom as well, so he may actually elect to stack off here. Although he doesn't have any additional equity that I can see. 6 on the turn for Karen, and apparently that's the check mark. Yep. River's the flush as well. Pulls in a nice sized pot. Dropping down to about 320 euros and managing to get the full double up.
260. Dobrý. Já ti vrátím.
Bring on the Sveton. Couldn't agree more. Should be a couple of hours to go for that one.
Thank you very much. Light straddle. Two fold, 3 fold, 4 call, 5 fold.
Alexander here limping in the hijack with the single suited queens, the 7 suit. It's just not playable. Certainly an overrated hand. Look at this from Nick, double suited kings. Does have the ace blocker as well. And is in the small blind, which is going to make life difficult, but with a hand this strong, you're not really too bothered. You just want to be getting more money in the pot as and when you can. Alexander and Karen end up coming along for the ride, and it's 180 to the flop once again. Oh, top set for Nick. Such a dry board as well. And does have backdoor spades to boot as well. Looks like he's cutting out a bet. I think we can check and we can bet small. They're the only 2 options here. Got the board completely crushed. And it would be nice to work in some checks in there as well, but yeah, it's huge sizing, isn't it? Just trying to get action from the 5, 6, 7 and stuff like that. Wow, Karen electing to let go of the 6-5 for the open-ended straight draw. Yeah, it looks like a dealer change, and this dealer is one of the most adept people here. Certainly good at dealing Sveton and picks up all of the new games and the sort of crazy mixed games that we like to call Super DC here at the Cash Game Festival.
Mississippi straddle. Big blind. Please big blind.
So Dimitri, 3 diamonds in his hand, King, 964.
8 call. 1 call. 2 fold. 3 fold, 4 fold. 5 fold.
And unfortunately, Jimmy's not really been picking up anything, has he? Karen's probably going to be in. She likes the double suited stuff. Queen, Jack, 10, 5, deuce. Certainly a hand that looks good but plays quite poorly with non-nutted suits. There's King, Queen, 6 with 3 hearts and no one having the flush, so it's going to be a bit of an action killer. Dimitri has top set. And Karen improving to a straight. And I do like a decision to bet here. Gets a call from Dimitri looking for a board pair. It is the 9 of hearts, which is another great card for Karen, as it makes it far less likely that her opponent has hearts. And the big winner in the game so far is Rock, up 1,000. About 278 big blinds.
Button straddle.
Ace Jack 753 for Rock, not a playable hand whatsoever, even though he is technically, well, not technically even, but getting what he thinks to be is a good price. And finally, Jimmy's got a playable hand, double suited Queen, Queen 776.
40, yes.
Pumps it up to 40. Karen's in there with Ace 10, 8, deuce, deuce. Nick's got 3 hearts in his hand, but 5 cards to the straight. Gonna flop a decent amount of wraps with this kind of hand, and strong ones at that as well.
Four players.
So Bully has Queen High Diamonds with some straight blockers as well. Checks round, Nick with the wrap. And the Ace of Diamonds, I didn't notice that. So that can certainly help eliminate some hands from his opponent's check call or check pot ranges. But Dimitri's a tough man to get to fold, you know, and he does come along with the 10, 9, 8, 5, 4 with 3 diamonds.
call, 6 call. Three check. 7 check. 8 bet. All in. 100. It's all in, yes, it's all in. 190.
Dimitri turning the 9, and that's a disaster card for Nick.
7 call.
Unfortunately, not really seeming to run all that well this week.
Button straddle. 2 fall. 3 call. 4 call. 5 call. Yes. 6 call. 7 call. 8 raise pot. 65. 65. 1 fault. 3 call. 6 call. 7 call.
Lovely hand for Jimmy here. Ace, King, Queen, Jack 10 double suited. It's pretty much one of the best hands you can get in the game.
3 players.
Plays extremely well, and as I say that, does just flop top pair, which will feel like a bit of a beat. Backdoor clubs to boot though as well, and it's going to be piling it in for the 178.
180. 6 4.
And Dimitri has middle set on the flop here, so he's going absolutely nowhere. And Jimmy is going to need some backdoor kind of stuff pretty quick.
3 times. Okay, 180. 3 times.
It's a club on the first board. Great card for Jimmy, improving to 2 pair with a nut flush draw. Bricks that one. Second board turns another draw with the wrap and bricks that one. So it's going to be a full Skupovic so far for Dimitri. Unless they're running 3. No, it doesn't look like it. It's just 2 for Dimitri then.
All cards?
So sometimes the side cards do save the day, and it was the case for Dimitri with those 6s, the sneaky 6s, flopping one of the best flops you can hope for, King 6-3. Not likely to have many straight draws. If they do have the flush draw, then so be it. You've got the 6 of spades in your hand, so reduces some of the chance that they'll make it.
I don't know. This?
Oh, they're going to do another one. And, yep, it's going to be one more for Dimitri. I think everyone having a little laugh at Jimmy's expense there, saying, how many more times do you need it, kiddo? Guessing they're all thinking that he's got spades.
Buying 500.
Buying 500, seat number 3.
You win. Why did you fold kings? You had a bucket of bolts with it. First one I turned a wrap and a flush draw. Second one top 2 and a wrap. Third one top 2 and a wrap.
Větší pičoviny si vymýšlejte, ty vole. 5 raise 20. Six call, 7 fold. 8 call. 1 call. 2 call.
Roll after him.
3 fold. 4 call. Six players. 4 check. 5 check. 6 check, 8 check.
Sorry about that, guys. Just grabbing some water. Jack saying, do you know how to play Pokio from the UK? Can you get a guest account or something? I don't think there's a way around it unless you're a bit sneaky with a VPN or something like that. It would be rather beneficial to play those games, I'm sure, but I just don't think that there is a way around it unless you are using some sneaky kind of software. So, Rock leading out on that flop with pretty much the Raz and getting it done. Loads of overpairs folding. I mean, he's got some backdoor stuff. Even VPN isn't worth it. Why'd you say that, Donna? As you can't withdraw any winnings. Oh, I see. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a little bit more relaxed than that, but I wouldn't be particularly sure. Some much needed water for me after a few too many last night. Ace Queen Jack 10 double for Karen. Would have liked to have seen a raise there, although she is out of position, so she can go for a limp pot as well. The 7 doesn't do much for her hand though, which is a bit of an issue. And Rock comes along for the ride as well.
4 players. Six check. 1 check, 2 check, 3 check.
Karen with top pair and backdoor galore, and does turn one of them. Now 2 pair with Jack 10 for the gut shot. Looks like she's continuing to check.
25.
And Rock bets 25, just trying to thin out the field a little bit. Maybe not really too sure why.
6 check, 1 check.
And Karen and Romeo are going to chop that one up.
Check.
Not beating much.
1 fold.
That's impossible. I had 2 of those. That's impossible. Yeah.
I have 2 pair folding. Hold the best hand.
I had ace jack.
AJ.
Ace jack 7.
You have to.
Oh.
No board bet.
No brick city. Straddle.
Send money to someone else or get a bank transfer for them, says Jack, or chip dump if there's no player transfer. I think there is a player transfer embedded. Usually it's kind of standardised these days, isn't it? But I can get confirmation on that if you want from the Pokio representative here. So everyone limping around here, Romeo with the aces and only 4%, incredibly. And apparently Karen is the big favourite here. I mean, they must know the flops before they're coming, don't they, with these equities. They are a little bit awry. Sergey flopping the gut shot to the nuts with the nut flush draw. And Karen's going to try and thin the field out, try and get some naked draws to fold, which is good for her. Build a pot as well with top set blocker with eights. Romeo comes along for the ride with the queen high flush draw, and that's a great turn card for Sergey, who now improves to the nuts. Would have liked to have seen a turn lead here. You can definitely get called by sets, two pairs and such like. But he does get a bite out of Romeo, who's now with the two aces trying to represent ace 10, I guess, with the relevant blockers to the nuts. So Sergey pumping it up to 400. And I think Romeo kind of understands that the game's up. Lets it go, and Sergey with the nuts and the nut flush draw gets it done.
Are we doing one time? Later? Okay. I've been promised a one time later though. I've been promised a one time.
Čtvrtá?
Keeping that one in the boat?
Yes, sir. Restraddle 20.
Jimmy with the Jack 9977. Letting it go. Two bad pairs in his hand. Can get into some reverse implied odds scenarios. Alexander in seat 4. Not sure what the commotion or the weight is for. It looks like Nick has got a playable hand. He's going to make that 90. Yep, he's popped up to 90 with Jack 10 8 6, double suited. Certainly a reasonable play, and gets a fold out of Karen. So just takes down the free money in the middle, makes 50 euros. On to the next hand, no rake, not the end of the world. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit weird, man. Yeah, just a bit of...
Hey guys, it's Jason. I'm back for a hand or two.
6, 7 and 8. Call.
Hope the action has been going good. Nick, looks like I folded all the way around to the small blind. Nick completing it.
One fold. 2 fold, 3 fold.
No, we have a straddling situation. Okay, so 4-way to the flop. Sergey here hits a full house. Already has the check mark in front of him, but that must mean that there's some other aces out there because Dmitry can draw to an ace, but we see one ace in Nick's hand. Maybe one of the other players folded an ace. And it's Nick leading out. Dmitry obviously, Dmitry making the call, and Sergey obviously staying in the hand as well, trying to draw a little bit more action in. But Sergey is going to have to get some value now, more than what he got on the flop. He chooses though just to check with the full house. His full house got a little better. He's only losing to a queen 9. And I'd like to see Sergey raise here. Dmitry has a decision to make. He does have the straight in his hand. He does not have the flush. Nick has the nut flush, but I'm not sure he would call any kind of raise here. Maybe a very small raise. Let's see what happens. But we won't find out what happens because Sergey just makes a call with the second nuts. No, Sergey raising to 125 and Nick making the fold, so...
We're gonna play bomb fold this man. 25.
I think I'll be here for one more hand, maybe 2. Rock with a nice stack going on here. Romeo also. A couple smaller stacks in play to combine with that. So one more hand, folks. Let's see what happens. Hand number 72 on the stream. Either we have a bump pot or something happened, because I see lots of weird things coming up on here. I don't see any bump pot action though with chips, but the pot's already at 200, so everybody just called for 25, making it a bump pot. Maybe there was a dealer change. Who doesn't love a bump pot? We don't know what Karen has, but both Sergey and Alexander have 4s in their hand. Nobody with the pocket jacks. In fact, not too many pocket pairs out there at all. So we'll pay more attention to these two players. Alexander liking the fact that he has a 4 in his hand. And let's see what they're blocking of each other. Alexander and Sergey have 3 8s between them. So we're looking at a 10, 5, or 3 for Sergey to improve, otherwise Alexander will be ahead. And Alexander leading out, and I guess we won't see that happen because Sergey just folding the 4 that he has in his hand. It was a big enough bet. He doesn't want to get involved here. Romeo will likely toss this away, even though he has some out and Jimmy making the fold. So Alexander at least bet the other player with the 4 in his hand. Tidy little pot. All right, looks like George is back. Missed a missed a front pot.
Oh, yeah.
Where one player folded. It was a Jack 4-4 board.
Yep.
One player let out with the 4, the other player folded. Didn't want to
Okay.
get involved, and
Yeah.
not too much he missed outside of
Okay.
that.
Well, thanks, Jason, for taking over. Okay, so Nick popping it up to 50 from the cutoff with Ace, King, Queen, Deuce, Deuce. Not a hand that I'd be isolating here for sure, but yeah, not sure about that one. 5-5-9, it comes with 2 hearts on the flop. It's a decent flop, obviously, for Romeo with a 5. Oh, Karen has the full house. Karen has a full house and Romeo's got a 5. King on the turn improves Romeo to 5s full of kings. And it's going to be time for Karen to start to put some money in the pot, and she does. Betting 100. Can't see Nick doing anything. Gets out the way. And Dimitri drawing stone cold dead. But for some reason mulling something over does end up folding. And Romeo goes for the call. It's going to be 270 behind for Karen, and that's going to be going in the middle for sure. All in Ovich. It's going to be a relatively tough spot for Romeo. Who leads for 125. Karen snap puts it all in. And Romeo's going to see the bad news here, as Karen did indeed flop 9s full of 5s. As soon as she didn't get completely snapped off there, she knew that she had the best hand, and I'm sure she probably knew she had the best hand the entire way. Romeo with the sort of weird lead call there on the river. If anything, that the lead would be beneficial, because as soon as you do get jammed on there, you know you're never good. Which can save you the all-in bet, but deciding just to go with it anyway. So ace, queen, 3, deuce, deuce. Romeo. Gonna come along for the 5. Jimmy, Alexander, Sergey and Nick look like they're along for the ride as well. And it's going to be a family pot. 7 ways to the flop, guys. Buratino, hello, how you doing, pal? 975. Anyone in there with the 8-6? From what I can see, no. 4 of diamonds on the turn, bringing some backdoor flush opportunities. Dimitri has diamonds, as does Jimmy with king high diamonds. Also has 976. I think it's a good time to start betting if you are Jimmy, and he does indeed do that. So, well, nicely played there. Thins out the field a little bit. Dimitri has top 2 pair with queen high diamonds, and Rock has 4 pair, so both of them coming along. And Dimitri ends up winning at the moment with the queen 9. Still no straights out there, but Jimmy knows that he's probably one of the only people that can have a straight in this spot. However, with the diamonds in his hand, doesn't elect to bet. Would prefer his opponent had missed diamonds. What's up with you, says Buratino. Yeah, not too much, man. Pretty tired, feel a bit ropey after last night, and looking forward to getting a bit of sleep after this Sveton stream, and then probably waking up and coming down to play some late night PLO. Definitely gambled a bit yesterday. Played some Sveton, 6-card Sveton, 5-card, 4-card Omaha. Pretty much anything that was going. Yesterday wasn't the best session. I think I lost 200, but I've done quite well for the week. Up good 4 figures, which I'm happy with. So can't say fairer than that. Yeah, I can't win every session, can you, pal? So it's not the end of the world, really. But it's nice when you're in a situation where you feel like you're running bad, or you're pretty card dead and you're only losing 200 in a session, and then when you do run well, it's a lot more lucrative, that's for sure.
Okay, so
that's true, yes. Karen Muir from Ireland. She is at Cash Game Festival an awful lot.
1 call, 2 call, 3 call. 5 players.
Yeah, she's been on stream many times. So 3 deuce 4 with 2 clubs. Scanning the whole cards now. Looks like Rock's got himself a guttable. Dimitri with a straight with queen high clubs. It's going to start the betting. Going to half pot. Rock straight in there with the gut shot. Deuce on the turn, not Dimitri's favourite card, and I think Rock should have possibly started to turn his hand into a bluff there if he's going to call the flop that wide. Yep. And does bet 150 on the river, representing a full house. Completely missed all of his equity. All of his equity being the naked 5. I think what Dimitri's thinking though is that if you had a full house, wouldn't you have started betting the turn? thinking it's maybe a bit all too convenient to be checked to twice and now start representing a hand. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Buratino. It's such a weird spot to start bluffing on the river that maybe it works, because it just seems like he should always have it. Dimitri trying to sniff this one out. Does have 3 clubs in his hand, which takes away some of the missed flush draws that Rock might be in there with. However, he's going to station it off with the straight, and Rock, who made a bit of a splashy stab at that one. On the river after the check on the turn. Gets sniffed out by Dimitri, who Buratino agrees with. As played, he should call. Because if you are check folding the straight there, having checked the turn and river, you're basically check folding pretty much everything.
Position 3, bottom till 10.
Yeah, Sergey is pretty solid. Definitely one of the better players on the table, in my opinion. Seems to know what he's doing. Has reasons for it, and yeah, I think on a relatively loose passive 5-card table, playing solid and, or as you say, tight is the way to go. So everyone in there on the spin. Looks like we've done a bomb pot. Yeah, Buratino, you're right in that regard. Can be a little bit obvious sometimes. So we've got the 5-card bomb pot. And who's got the most equity here? You can see 22% next to Dimitri. And Rock's fencing a stab at the pot with 6-5-4-3-2. Does have some nutted outs. Bottom 2 pair as well. Definitely blocking some of the continues, but Romeo comes along there with a pretty similar hand. 3 pair. Ten on the turn improves Sergey to backdoor flush draw with top 2. And I think the game's up for Rock, although he's going to go for it. Definitely not working against Sergey for this street, but we'll see what the river brings. So Sergey won't be folding to the turn bet, that's for sure. Open-ender flush draw on top 2. Got to be calling one. If he saw any of yesterday's streams with Rock involved, he would, could even be jamming for value here. Just taking his time to mull it over, which is a reasonable. Yeah, Rock was the action guy from the short deck stream that I was in. Gives a lot of action, gets a lot back. And 10-8 is going to be good here, unless Rock can find one more barrel, which would definitely work, by the way. No, he just snap checks it back with 2 pair, which unfortunately is never going to win. Oh well, Buratino and anyone else that's interested in watching back yesterday's stream, if you go onto Twitch and click on past broadcasts, it's available for all of you to see. And thanks for joining, guys. Once again, you can join us not just only at the festivals, but on our online mobile app, Pokio, where there are 24/7 games. We've been giving away a lot of freebies and giveaways. If you do get yourself signed up, and the details are going to be here. Get yourself signed up there. Use the club ID, enter, get your verification and documents processed, and then you will be able to receive 25 euros free into your Pokio bankroll. Buratino saying any news about Tallinn? No, that's just not happening, unfortunately. I'm not really sure why, but I can ask in a meeting that I'm going to be having tomorrow or the day after. However, the plan to have another Cash Game Festival was also made for Bucharest, which is going to be coming up in just only 3 weeks now. So Dimitri with double-suited kings. In an inflated pot already, where Alexander with his double-suited rundowny hand on the button that he's squeezed is going to put some pressure on Dimitri here, and they are relatively deep stacked as well, so you're not going to see much back raising or anything like that. They're going to go heads up, and the double-suited kings obviously dominating with the clubs. Has a diamond as well, which blocks some more of those cards that Alexander can hit. But however, he does flop top pair with the jack high flush draw. He's going to try and bet to protect his hand, maybe get some naked overpairs to fold, such as what Dimitri has. Dimitri, though, flopping bottom 2 pair as well, and pretty sticky customer is our man Dimitri. Going to be tough to get rid of him just to 1 bet. You got to be prepared to fire the multiple barrels, and that's kind of what sorts the men from the boys, doesn't it? It's all well and good firing a flop bet and, you know, piling another one in on the turn, but with a guy like Dimitri, you could easily be playing for stacks here in a spot you're not very comfortable with. And looks like Dimitri has raised or called. And this is one of the problems of Alexander actually betting in the first place. If he does get any action, how's he going to like his hand? Yes, he's got 1 pair. Yes, he's got some backdoor straight draws. But he's going to be worried that his flush draw isn't live. And so Alexander's found himself in a bit of a weird spot. Had he checked back the turn, he could have realised his equity a lot easier and gained a little bit more information about his opponent's hand as well, based on what they do on the turn. Egg and Chip 68, thanks very much for joining us here at Cash Game Festival Bratislava. Our last day for streaming cash games. And Alexander will peel one off, so 175 in there once again. 350 in there on the flop. 940 euros in the middle, and just a pot-sized bet left for Dimitri. Oh, wow. 2-3. Gets the job done. So finds himself the check mark, which is going to be pleasing for him. And goes for the check, which I like. Very sneaky little check there from Dimitri. And just praying that his opponent will do something. I know I said that, Tom. I'm saying that Alexander's bet was designed to target a hand like a naked overpair. He's got equity against that and wouldn't mind just taking it down there and then. And Dimitri, the sticky customer himself, gets the job done with the deuce on the turn. It's really tough to react with a naked overpair on a board like that, especially if you don't have a flush draw. And you just see a lot of people overfold that spot, and you know they struggle to defend it. They struggle to have the board coverage to be able to continue. So it's a nice spot to apply some pressure. But Dimitri with a pretty funky check raise. So drawing to the end, unfortunately, of this 555 card Omaha stream. I hope you've enjoyed it so far, guys. Yeah, unfortunately. So should be seeing a lot of spins towards the end of the stream for the next 10 minutes or so, as we see Sergey on the button straddle, just calling with some relatively weak aces. The 5-3 doing absolutely nothing for him. The value of having wheel sort of draws in 5 card isn't the best, being completely honest. Rock flopping the best so far. Ace Queen 10 deuce deuce, finding a way with the Queen Queen 6 flop. Let's see what sizing he goes for here. Oh, it's a check. Trying to rope in Sergey on the button, maybe to having a stab at it, and is rewarded with the nuts on the turn. However, Nick is grabbing chips and looks interested, and he hasn't been able to get much going, so decides, I'm going to try and take a lead at this. A lot of weakness shown on the flop. Potentially have some draws anyway with the Jack 9-9. The 9s being a pretty vital card. And he does block a lot of the opponent's continuing range. Rock, however, though, has the lots. And he'd do well to just call here, in my opinion. Keep Nick's bluffs in there. A lot of Nick's hands are going to be drawing dead. Yeah, I like that. Good stuff from Rock. And Sergey in behind with the naked aces, having no choice but to fold. And looks like Karen is getting out the way as well. So 4 of clubs on the turn changes nothing. And, you know, Nick can be thinking here, Rock would have probably bet the flop with a lot of his Queen X. It was multi-way. He might wanted to thin out the field or get some value from his hand. So considering Rock to be kind of capped in this situation, and what I mean by capped is, you know, unable to have the nuts, which, you know, he does. And I think they're quite good friends. So Rock kind of saying, look, I'm all in, basically, mate. I've got it. No need for any Hollywooding or any of that bullshit. Just letting him know where he stands and putting the chips in as soon as Nick did fire that river bet. Roseboom is even more drunk than I thought. 5 cards, not 4. Yes, 5 euro 5 card. And the stream game has spilled out onto an outer table. Yeah, it's the 555 game, and it's absolute mad action. Looks like we've got a 25 euro bomb pot. And for those of you guys who don't know what a bomb pot is, everyone gets dealt a hand and it's straight to the flop, which makes things interesting, especially in 5-card Omaha. Anyone can have anything, and there's no real knowledge of the pre-flop ranges. Does mean that people are pretty honest post-flop. You don't see an awful lot of bluffing. I feel like it's a game that should involve a lot of bluffing, but ends up being quite honest on flops and turns, that's for sure, when it's extremely multi-way. So as you see here, Jimmy has top set, so he's just going to lead out for 200. Sergey calling with the nut flush draw. What else has he got? Bottom 2 pair as well, which are kind of redundant, and actually does have incredibly 0%. Romeo is in there with 10 high flush draw and Queen 10 for the open ender. Definitely some equity there. Rock, not too sure what he's got, just 1 pair by the looks of things. And Nick has Queen, Queen, Jack 10. So blocks top set, has an open ender, has a good flush draw as well. And possibly might be raising this. Yeah, it looks like he's going to shovel it in. Jimmy has top set. So Nick is looking for not that card. And an ace isn't going to get it done either. I think it looks like Sergey stacked off 2 and won the side pot. So a bit of a disaster there for Nick. With the ace on the river as Sergey improved. Oh, no, sorry. Let's have a look. What did Nick have? He just had queens, but Sergey had bottom 2 on the flop. So was desperately looking for a king or an 8 to scoop a loop. Couldn't find one. 2.5k pot is going to be mostly going in the direction of Jimmy with his top set. Where is Nit Franke? I've heard Franke called many things, but not a nit. And I think we're doing another bomb pot, guys, as I can see chips in front of everyone. It looks like Nick's going for the old reload.
Again. Can I 25? One pot?
That's a good feeling to have, you know? Means you're going to be all in.
Tired on that strategy, you know?
So it looks like we're ending the stream with a couple of €25 bomb pots. Straight to the flop once again, see what happens. Just scanning the cards here. Looks like Jimmy's got Queen, which on a rainbow board is a very strong hand to consider bluffing with, especially as it does look so strong leading into this many people, multi-ways. And no one's really going to be comfortable continuing with anything worse than a decent set on this board. Six of diamonds on the turn, bringing backdoor diamonds. Who has those? Looks like the Rock and Karen. Rock actually drawing dead with his hand, having picked up the draw. And Karen now is going to start leading out. Has a 6 with a 10 blocker and backdoor diamonds to boot as well. Nick's out, Dimitri is going to be out, Rock is... Yeah, so Rock is going to come along with just the naked flush draw on an Ace King Jack 6 board. Oh, actually Romeo does have the 4 of diamonds alongside the King as well. So he's got the nut flush draw at this time. Didn't notice that 4 of diamonds, and the Jack of diamonds on the river isn't going to be a particularly comfortable card for anyone pairing the board, but I'm sure Romeo would take it. 850 in there, and Karen's made a very weird bet here of 275, which is only ever going to get called by better. I guess she could get a queen high flush to fold. She does block some of the full houses as well. I'm guessing this is her using it as a bluff. Yeah, I guess that she doesn't really have much showdown value here with the 10 high flush versus 2 opponents when betting the turn. So, does believe herself to have the range advantage. I mean, it's a risky one because your opponents can also continue the turn with maybe pocket kings. Ace Jack is potentially in there as well with the draw. But she does have some blockers to very strong hands, such as sixes, such as such as aces. And Rock still deliberating over this one and manages to find a reluctant fold with the 9 high flush. Romeo, however, has improved. And looks like not happy with the situation, but looks like he's kind of made up his mind that he's going to call anyway. Is my read. Karen giving it the chat. She knows she's behind at this point once she's got a tank call and someone else who's considering his options. Come on, Romeo. What you gonna do, pal? Oh, so close. Is he gonna do it? Karen gets it through. Yes, and shows it. And that looks like that's going to be the last hand of the Cash Game Festival 555 stream. Tap of the table from Dimitri. Karen utilising her blockers very well there and getting it through nicely. So guys, thanks very much for joining. I'm going to take a short break. I'll be with you very shortly for some Sviten special to close things off for the cash game side of things here at Cash Game Festival Bratislava. See you soon.
Cash Game Festival